All right, today we're going to deconstruct two of the biggest, most famous puzzles in all of philosophy. And look, these aren't just abstract riddles for the classroom. They're actually powerful thought experiments. Think of them like intellectual tools, designed to let us see the hidden architecture of our own thinking. So let's just dive right in with a choice. Scenario 1, you see a runaway trolley about to hit 5 people. You can pull a lever, divert it to another track, but there's one person on that track who will die. Scenario 2, same trolley, same 5 people. This time, you're on a footbridge over the track with a large man. You can push him, and his body will stop the trolley, saving the 5 people. Now, the math is identical, right? Sacrifice 1 to save 5. But why does one feel so different? Why does pushing the man feel so much more wrong than pulling the lever? That gut feeling? That's where we begin.
So yeah, let's start with this runaway trolley problem. We're going to break down the anatomy of this dilemma, because that deep conflict in our gut, that's the engine that has been driving this whole philosophical debate for decades.
And what's really fascinating is how this problem came to be. It didn't just pop out of nowhere. It started back in 1967 in a pretty dense academic paper by a philosopher named Philip Foot. Then, in '76, Judith Jarvis Thomson gave it its name and added that brilliant, gut-wrenching footbridge version. And from there, fast forward to the 2000s, and it explodes into this massive internet meme, taking a super high-level ethical debate and putting it in front of millions of people.
Okay, so here's the absolute heart of it. When you pull that lever, the death of the one person is a tragic but foreseen side effect of you saving the 5. But when you push the man, his death isn't a side effect at all. It is the direct, intended means of saving them. You need him to die to stop the trolley. And that distinction between a foreseen consequence and an intended means is the whole ballgame. It's the key to why our intuitions scream at us.
And this internal conflict leads us right into a clash of the philosophical titans. We're going to look at 3 major ethical frameworks, and you'll see that each one gives us a completely different toolkit for trying to solve this single impossible choice.
First up, you've got utilitarianism. For a utilitarian, this is all about the outcome. The morality of an action is judged purely by its consequences. You just do the math. What produces the greatest good for the greatest number? Well, 5 lives saved is way better than 1 life saved. So from a purely utilitarian view, you are morally obligated to pull the lever and push the man. The ends justify the means. Simple as that.
But then you have deontology. This is the framework we most often connect with Immanuel Kant. And for deontology, consequences don't matter. What matters are rules and duties. There's a core principle here that says you can never use another person merely as a means to an end. Why? Because people have inherent dignity. They aren't tools you can just use and discard for some other goal.
And this table just lays the conflict bare. The utilitarian, looking at the numbers, says, yep, pull the lever, and yep, push the man. 5 is greater than 1. But the deontologist says pushing the man is absolutely forbidden. You'd be using him as a trolley stopper, a tool. That violates a fundamental moral rule. For them, some actions are just wrong, period, no matter how good the outcome might be. And that right there, that's the heart of the dilemma.
All right, let's switch gears. We're going to pivot from the philosophy of action, what should we do, to the philosophy of being, what even is a thing. We're moving to our second puzzle, a ship's identity crisis. This is the famous Ship of Theseus, an ancient puzzle that makes us question what it even means for something to be the same thing over time.
So here's how the story goes. The people of Athens preserve the ship of their hero, Theseus. But over the years, the wooden planks start to rot. So they replace them one by one, until eventually not a single one of the original planks is left. So, is this restored ship still the Ship of Theseus? Seems like it, right? But then, the philosopher Thomas Hobbes adds a killer twist. What if a collector saved all those old original planks and reassembled them? Now you have 2 ships.
And that's the question that fries your brain. Which one is the real Ship of Theseus? Is it the restored one, the one that has a continuous history that's always been in the harbor? Or is it the reassembled one, the ship that's made of all the original stuff? Our intuitions get pulled in 2 totally different directions, and it forces us to ask, what does sameness even mean?
So how on earth do we solve this? Well, as you might guess, philosophy doesn't just hand us one easy answer. Instead, it gives us a bunch of competing theories, each with a totally different take on what makes something itself.
This chart breaks down some of the main contenders. For example, an Aristotelian view would focus on the ship's form and purpose. Since the restored ship still functions as a memorial to Theseus, that's the real one. But then you have a view called mereological essentialism, which is a fancy way of saying an object is defined by its parts. For them, the reassembled ship, made of the original matter, is the only true one. Then you've got theories that focus on its continuous path through space and time. You can see, depending on which rule you pick for sameness, you get a totally different answer.
Okay, so you might be thinking, ancient ships, runaway trolleys, what does any of this have to do with my life? Well, it turns out these aren't just old questions. They have really profound, really urgent applications right here, right now. Let's see why these puzzles matter more than ever.
The trolley problem isn't a thought experiment anymore. It's a literal programming problem for engineers designing self-driving cars. It's a triage protocol for doctors in a pandemic deciding who gets the last ICU bed. But here's the really important shift. The modern goal isn't really to find the right answer to the problem. It's to design systems, like safer cars or fairer medical protocols, that avoid making us face these impossible choices in the first place.
Now let's bring the Ship of Theseus a lot closer to home. I'm talking about you. Get this. Over the course of about 7 to 10 years, roughly 90% of the cells in your body get replaced with new ones.
So here's the question for you. If your body is just like that restored Ship of Theseus, made of almost entirely new material, what makes you the same person you were a decade ago? It's a mind-bender, right? Many philosophers argue it's not the physical stuff, but the psychological continuity, that unbroken chain of memories, beliefs, and consciousness, that's the real you.
And we see this everywhere, even in the corporate world. Just think about a company like Apple. The people who founded it are gone, the products are totally different, even the logo has changed. Almost all of the original planks have been replaced. And yet, we all recognize a continuous identity, a brand that carries on. It's the Ship of Theseus playing out on a global, economic scale.
So ultimately, that's what these puzzles are. They're tools for clear thinking. They are not just brain teasers. They are precision instruments designed to sharpen our minds and help us really understand the core concepts we use every single day without a second thought.
You know, the goal here isn't about finding the one single right answer. The real value is in the process of questioning itself. These experiments force us to get under the hood and inspect the foundations of our own beliefs about right and wrong, about who we are. They show us all the messy, ambiguous spots we usually just gloss over.
And this really is the ultimate takeaway. The point of wrestling with these dilemmas isn't to get really good at making horrifying choices, is to use the clarity we gain from them to design better, fairer, and safer systems in the real world, to engineer a world with fewer runaway trolleys to begin with.
So these thought experiments give us a method, a way of thinking critically that we can apply to basically anything. They teach us how to probe our own assumptions. And that leaves us with one final question for you. What unexamined belief of your own will you challenge next?